5 minutes after 10 o'clock. It is time for Ocala Magazine Radio, and your beautiful, smart, spiritual host is in the studio. Kelly Hart is here, of course. This is a show where we learn about Ocala. Good morning, Kelly. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good.
Thank you for those compliments this morning.
It's a nice day.
That was nice.
It's nice to get nice compliments on a nice day, right?
It's well, even on a bad day.
On a rainy day.
Any day, I'll take compliments, let's face it. But those are nice. I appreciate that. Yes, it is time for Ocala Magazine Radio, and I'm excited this morning because I have a fantastic call-in guest who wrote one of the features in this month's article. It's called in this month's issue. The article is called Tiny Terrorist, and it was written by Scott Vandeman. And Scott works with Ocala Magazine. We have a relationship with him, and he was inspired to write this article, which I'll let him go into a little bit more detail about what made him feel so inspired and motivated to write it. Scott, do I have you on the line?
You certainly do.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. I'm looking at you on the internet, and you look beautiful as always.
Oh, thank you. This is a great day for compliments. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking your morning to be with us. I want to just first ask you, what inspired you to write such a fantastic article on bullying?
First off, as a child, I was severely bullied when I was from about junior high school into my high school years, to the point where after age 15, about age 16, I had to withdraw from public school and go ahead and go on to college. And so when I saw some of the things that were going on down in Central Florida and frankly all over the country, especially the Rebecca Sedgwick case, and then I saw also that there's a real dialogue in Marion County right now about this issue, I just thought that would be a good thing for me to explore.
Yeah, and on the very last page of your article where it talks about some statistics about bullying by the numbers, and it said 1 in 3 students say they have been bullied at school. That really struck me because, Scott, I have a 7-year-old, and although she's never come home and said she's been bullied, that's an age, and then I don't know if it gets any better or worse, to be quite honest with you, but where they're kind of coming into their own and they're discovering themselves, and some of the little girls are taller than the boys, and boys are mean, and they make fun, and they do all these little things, and growing up it was kind of like, well, they're flirting with you or they're just playing, but now bullying has become such an issue that how do you know? Like, how do you know the difference between what is just playing and normal childlike behavior and what constitutes bullying?
Generally, based on my research that I did for this story and based on the information that I received from some of the national experts, like Dr. Susan Swearer at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and Dr. Jeremy Pettit at Florida International University, those behaviors cross the line when they start to become threatening, or when they start to cause some sort of emotional distress for the victim of bullying.
Well, and it was interesting, and I want you to elaborate a little bit more about the story that you told to lead this feature off. But it was an issue of suicide where some young man was bullied to the point where he committed suicide. So kind of fill us in so the people watching or listening get a better understanding about how severe bullying can be.
Sure. Well, again, according to those national experts, and frankly, the experts there in Marion County that I spoke with as well for this article, what I learned was really quite a surprise, which was that there really is no causal link scientifically between or linking bullying to suicide. Dr. Jeremy Pettit out of Florida International University specializes in teen suicide, excuse me, and what he told me was that while there's no causal link, it's also very, very premature to rule out a link. What he said is that for now what we can say is that for kids who are already experiencing feelings of isolation or anxiety or depression, bullying ratchets up the pressure and may lead them to do something that or otherwise they wouldn't do.
And in doing your research, did you come across any maybe statistics or information about support systems? Because I'm trying to better understand, when I was reading this and I was trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who may have been bullied, because fortunately for me growing up, I didn't have that experience. and didn't know much about bullying. And I think research has grown the older I've gotten to where it's now become kind of more of a hot topic. But these children that end up being bullied, that they're either afraid to tell an adult, or is it because they are afraid? Is there no support system? What did you find related to that?
What I found related to that is that a lot of bullying does go unreported, which is really unfortunate because I did interview Allison Arnold Wigginton, who's with Ocala Psychiatric Associates, and she's a licensed mental health counselor. And she made a very good point, which is that, kids need to change the balance of power in these situations and report to an adult that they trust, whoever that adult might be, somebody that they think can help, because the fear of retribution is generally what keeps them from reporting, and the actual retribution never seems to match the reality of the situation once they do report.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine being a small child and already having some underlying issues, and then having someone who's constantly on a continuous basis, bullying me or calling me names or threatening me, and then putting the fear of God in me that if I do report it, there's going to be more severe consequences.
Right.
That's really scary. And then to think that these kids feel like they have nowhere to go, no one to talk to, or if they do, there will be consequences. Now,
right, and that's the intimidation factor that goes along with bullying. I didn't report other than to my parents, and my parents being teachers themselves really felt like it was something that I should try to work through on my own or through other resources other than them. They felt that their getting directly involved would definitely make it worse for me, so they wanted me to deal with it through school counselors and things of that nature. And it was just something that was never going to stop as long as I was in that school. And the bullying that I experienced was very violent. I was cut. I had a bone broken. I had, I was beaten severely. Not to mention, just harassed verbally at almost every turn. One of the problems is that I was at the time I was 5'2" and 110 pounds. You might as well just tattoo victim on your forehead at that point.
That's really sad. And I'm thinking back, Scott, like when we were younger, bullying had to happen kind of face to face. Now social media has made it possible not only for children but for adults to bully one another. I mean, it is possible to get behind the computer screen or behind your phone and create profiles, or even just within your own personal profiles, and bully people that way. And I can only imagine how that has heightened the potential for bullying. Did you come across anything in your research in the way of that?
I did. Dr. Abshir with the Marion County school system was very adamant that the connected society that we live in right now, and the fact that we're all just very exposed in cyberspace, like it or not, has really increased the intensity of bullying. She's really looked into the statistics very closely, and she does head up Marion County School System's anti-bullying efforts. And one of the things that surprised me, because we see so much in the media these days about bullying incidents, and every time there's a school shooting or something awful that happens with a kid like that, everybody just automatically assumes that that child was bullied or driven to it in some way, shape, or form. But the fact is, first, that's just not true. But getting back to the issue of online bullying, the issue today is not the amount of bullying, because there's not more bullying than there was 30 years ago. The problem today is the intensity of it. But the fact that children can never escape. They can't do what I did. They can't go home and close the bedroom door and put on Fleetwood Mac and, just get away and escape. Now it's all over Facebook. It can be on Twitter. It can be on all of the various social networking platforms, and it's very, very public and very, very scary for children. As Ms. Wigginton said from Ocala Psychiatric, children have really big imaginations, and this can be terrifying for them. And she actually told me that the fear cycle is worse than adult abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and sexual abuse.
Well, I think kids are already so confused as it is when they're growing up and then hitting adolescence and puberty happens and all these changes happen and they're trying to figure out what they are as people in this world, and then to have something like that happen, I can't imagine. And I'm assuming it can be so traumatic that those things, even if they're resolved, would have some long-term effect. I mean,
yes, as a matter of fact, just by coincidence, I happened to see a report yesterday on bullying on Fox News, and there has been some new research done that indicates that the psychological impacts of bullying don't just stop in your youth, but they go on literally into your elder years, into your 70s, into your 80s, and beyond.
Wow.
So basically, the results of this study, what they're saying is that the results of bullying are a lifelong issue that people have to deal with.
I'd be curious to see, like you just said, there's all these statistics that talk about people who are victims of bullying and what happens to them initially, while they're being bullied, immediately after, and then how it follows them through life. But have you come across any research about the bully itself? People that might, as a young person, have been a bully, and as they've gotten older, is there any statistics to say what types of behavior, does that follow them through their life? Do they have long-term effects having been a bully?
Absolutely. And once again, the experts I spoke to, and I want to take a minute to say that you guys have some awesome people working this problem in Marion County. You should be very pleased with them, every single one of them. But yes, what every single expert agreed upon was that the bullies are actually more troubled than the individuals who are being bullied. Mm-hmm. Generally because bullies can occupy the role of bully and victim all at the same time. Mm-hmm. They may be bullied at home by their parents or siblings or other family members, and they learn a power and control cycle that is destructive to their lives, and they take that to school and take it out on other people. So their problems are actually a bit more complex than the actual victims. And another thing that I found really interesting was I went into this story with a hypothesis. I went into this story thinking this was going to be a story about the victims of bullying. And I wanted to paint the bullies as evil because of my own personal experience. Mm-hmm. What I learned from every single one of the experts is that we make that mistake in the media. They are not evil. They are terribly, terribly troubled, mm-hmm. and that we can't really address the issue of bullying or make even a dent in that issue unless we address the problems that the bullies have, because you've got to go to the root of the issue. And I really, like I said, I went in with the hypothesis, but I also had to put on my journalist hat and do a fair job. So there was a lot more focus in the story. For those of you who read it, you may have noticed there was a lot more focus on the story on the kids who are actually engaging in bullying behaviors than you might have expected.
Well, it goes back to, I remember my mother telling me one time, and Scott, as well as many others, is like I had talked about adult bullying, and I have been a victim myself of adult bullying and cyberbullying, and when you really start to think about the reasons why someone would do that to another person, my mother said it best, and I've heard it said many times, is that hurt people hurt people. And so we have to stop and ask ourselves, bullies don't just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to pick a random person and be a bully. There is some psychological factors involved. And where does that come from? It comes from some internal hurt through their personal experiences or childhood, and sometimes those things do not get resolved as adults, and they just become a bigger version of the bully that they may have been as a young person. So it's important that we talk about the fact that there are some avenues for these people. And you did mention that our school system and our Sheriff Chris Blair and his department does have some programs. So I want to talk a little bit about those, because I want to even better understand what's available for our students.
Sure. Well, I think I would like to start with Sheriff Blair, and also I talked to Captain Alicia Walker,
okay,
and she runs the juvenile division there at the Marion County Sheriff's Office. there's very limited things that law enforcement can do in terms of bullying, but what they can do is prevention and apprehension. That's what they can do in that context. So they've got a really unique program for the bullies. Mm-hmm. They take these bullies, they make them sign a contract, they make their parents sign a contract that says they'll cease the behavior, and just to drive that point home, they require that the parents come to the school and personally return the form. They also discuss the different things that could happen, alternative school placement, and even criminal prosecution. Mm-hmm. So, once those bullying behaviors cross over into criminal behaviors, it becomes a whole new ball of wax.
Yeah.
So that's what the sheriff's department's doing. They're also using their creativity to create rolling billboards out of their patrol vehicles. They're going to put some signs on the side, and they are working with Pastor Parent Chief at Now Church. They're working on a program where students will create the signs, have a contest to create the signs, so it'll be on the sides of the cars. Mm-hmm. And as Sheriff Blair said, and I love this, that's the win-win. That creates a sense of leadership in students who will be sensitized to the issue and won't accept it anymore, because we need as a society to get to that point where we treat bullying like we did smoking and drunk driving.
Absolutely.
We really made a dent in those social issues, those public health issues, through social disapproval and education. And that's really something that has not been done in the bullying arena as far as I was able to find out. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that you will follow through in Marion County, and I know that you will, because you've got some amazing people on it. You're cutting edge. You're absolutely cutting edge, because in my research, what I discovered is that a lot of school systems are doing nothing at all. And you have a real comprehensive program with the sheriff, with Now Church. I talked to the youth pastor there, Tristan Kennedy, and he told me that they have already done one program. They may have done another one by now to address the bullying issue. It's a positive, upbeat program that appeals to the kids. And he says that that's been working out pretty well. Mm-hmm. So you've got the sheriff's department, you've got the faith community involved, you've got the schools involved. The schools are basically, according to Dr. Abshir, who heads up the anti-bullying efforts for Marion County schools, she's using the science. She's really digging down into those statistics and digging down into that science, and then training school disciplinarians and teachers and administrators to dig into that data themselves so that they can better understand the problem. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you've got mental health professionals, and you're very lucky in Ocala to have someone at Ocala Psychiatric Associates that actually specializes in that area.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because we can't just depend solely on the school or the teachers to identify these things and be a resource. I mean, especially because, like you said earlier, these kids can't escape it. I mean, it starts at school. It may start in their peer groups, but then it leaks onto social media and it follows them home. And so, as parents and caregivers, I think it's important that we are involved in being aware, letting our children know there's zero tolerance of bullying, that it's safe to come and talk to us about it, that there's resources out there for them, and to just monitor our children's activities. I mean, not just to monitor to make sure our children aren't victims of bullies, but to monitor the fact that our children aren't being the bullies, because sometimes that can go unnoticed. We think we have this, sweet little child, and, they're behind a keyboard somewhere calling somebody, names, or belittling them, or making fun of their sexuality or something. And, next thing you know, that child has harmed themselves, or there's some major issue behind it. And then you get that call that your child is responsible. And so as parents, we can't let there be any gap as far as our monitoring of social media. And I think that's really, really critical.
Well, and yes, it's just like anything, frankly. Parental involvement is key to dealing with any problem with your child. And you are right. Not all bullies are bullied at home.
Right.
Some are just kids that lack social skills,
Right.
and don't know how to express themselves adequately, and end up using violence and saying terrible things to other people and about other people in order to ease that pain that they're feeling.
And I think a lot of it comes from stereotypes or beliefs, especially when you find bullies that are using race or sexuality as their, ammunition or weapon of choice. And I think those things start at home, because as parents, the way that we talk about other people and the way that we treat other people, there's this great chance, of course, just by common sense, that our children are going to pick up on those cues and believe those same things and then act the same way. So it starts at home by making sure that your children understand that they're supposed to treat everyone equally, that they're supposed to love everybody. That doesn't mean you're always going to agree with everybody. It doesn't mean you're always going to get along with everybody, or that life is peachy. But at the same time, I think your children learn to adapt to what they see at home. And so when you see children, it always, now that Lily is in school, and I've seen it myself on the playground or places like that, where young children, 7, 8 years old, will use some racial slur, or I'll see some kind of distance, maybe based on some cultural difference. It's so shocking to me to think that someone so young will already have those beliefs in them, and you think that's only going to fester as they get older, and then what's going to come of it.
Right, and that's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
That's one that would be great if we could solve as well. But,
sure.
I have the feeling that's going to be a tough nut to crack, just my personal opinion, because people are who they are, and you're right, what they say rubs off on their kids. My parents were very very careful to raise us to respect all people, to be colorblind, to treat everybody the way that we would want to be treated.
Sure. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, it, like you said, you're right. It's not an issue of you necessarily have to like someone or agree with them, but you have to coexist with them in a peaceful way. And, as Americans, we do that on a national scale. Why can't we do it as individuals and in communities?
Absolutely.
That's a question for me.
Sure. Well, and then, not just the psychological effects of bullying, but when I'm reading through these statistics and how many children are afraid to go to school, how many drop out of school, how many skip school. So it's not just affecting them psychologically, but they're not getting the education that they deserve. If they feel too threatened or too afraid to even show up for class, it's a domino effect. They're not showing up for class. Their grades could suffer. If their grades suffer, their opportunities to participate in some of the extracurricular and social activities will suffer. And then they may lose out on opportunities to meet other people or grow, or it could be a whole domino effect. And I don't think people genuinely understand that there's more to it than just the psychological, my feelings are hurt, or I'm scared of this one particular person, but it affects the entire path possibly of someone's childhood. So it's really important that we understand this. That's why I'm so happy that you took the time to research this and present it to us so that people can be aware, because that's really the only way we can change things, is to make other people aware of it. And you've done an amazing job with this article.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. I had a passion for writing it. It was a labor of love.
Yes.
And I just hope that it opens up a community dialogue, or furthers the community dialogue that you've got going on down there already about this issue.
Yes.
You guys have had some real problems down there of late that have gained national attention. The Rebecca Sedgwick situation especially.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for being here this morning. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we do have to go. But I want to let everybody know it's in this month's issue, but you can also go to ocalamagazine.com and look at our digital issue and read this. Please share it all over social media, because it's going to do great things for awareness. Thank you, Scott, for being here this morning.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you, Larry.
Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Tensions continue rising over Ukraine as President Obama continues to warn of broader sanctions against Russia.
We'll continue to keep some arrows in our quiver in the event that we see a further deterioration of the situation.
Speaking in Seoul, South Korea.
Trying to coordinate with European leaders. The president here in Seoul on a conference call with 4 European leaders, including Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, who's been a key person here working with President Obama going